I know you've heard stories of the students in the back of the classroom watching Fortnite videos instead of paying attention to the lecture. And before you start reminiscing about how bad those students were, I ask you to suspend judgment on this topic until I finish my speech. I am going to be persuading you of the harmful effects of playing video games. I have a close connection with this subject because my best friend since high school is addicted to video games. He lived with me in and out throughout my college experience, and I've seen how this addiction has taken a hold of his life. I'm going to be discussing you first about the problem of video game addiction, second, the cause, and finally, the solutions I can have for video game addiction. The problem is as following. Anderson and colleagues 2016, the relationship between addictive use and social media and video games with symptoms of psychiatric disorders, a large-scale cross-sectional study, has a clear description of video game addiction. It includes mood modifications, which I can see in Julius's life when he was playing video games and it didn't go as he wanted it to. It would modify his mood outside of the video game and have him being grouchy towards everybody around him, which wasn't good. There was an increased tolerance. He played video games less than when he did as the time went on. The more he played, the longer he played, he just increased his tolerance and was able to play longer. He had withdrawal effects when he wouldn't play video games. He would have increased anxiety. He would be incredibly attitudinal when he didn't have video games at his fingertips. And putting off basically recreational work and school activities just to play video games, the longer he played, it seemed like he gave up his whole life just to play 2K, which is a video game. Addiction to alcohol and the addiction to video games have some similarities. In Alaskoff's 2015 presentation, Understanding a Functional Alcoholic, he states this about alcoholism. Persons start having a serious problem when they start to have emotional issues. They neglect work obligations just for the substance. So it begins to take over their life. So now that you know about the problem that is video game addiction, I'm going to be discussing some of the causes. But first, I want to discuss Bean and colleagues' 2017 video game addiction, to push to pathologize video games as a criticism of the causes of video game addiction. They believe that that people play video games to escape a negative mood, and people play video games over everything else which they preoccupy. They believe that doesn't come without a lot of criticism. And I haven't seen it that way. And I found in Plant and colleagues' 2018 video game as a coping mechanism in the etiology of video game addiction as an exact counter. They found a direct correlation between people playing video games to escape the anxiety that they feel in their life. And they found out that people are playing video games instead of life to substitute it. Julius played 2K over everything. He would fill out job applications, but wouldn't turn them in to just play video games. It was cyclical. Now I turn to the solution to this problem that is so harmful. My solution always was identify that you are a video game addict. In AAA meetings for alcoholics, the first thing they do is recognize that they have an issue. My issue before I did this research was there was no title for video game addiction. However, I found in Bean and colleagues' 2017 video game addiction, to push to pathologize video games, they did find that the American Psychiatric Association has named a disorder for this addiction called Internet Gaming Disorder. Other research, this is good because I believe they've been able to name it, and now we can go ahead and put a label on it so we can help people fix their issues. Other research by Hull and colleagues, 2013, Video Game Characteristics, Happiness, and Flow as Predictors of Addiction Among Video Game Players, a pilot study, have offered a timer solution. So if video game players, the longer they're playing, there's a notification that lets people know that you're playing an amount that might lead to an addiction. This might stop video game players from the whole root and cause of it. I hope that I've been able to persuade you towards believing in the harmful effects of video game addiction. I've been able to discuss to you the problems of video game addiction, the cause, and I've hopefully offered some valuable solutions towards this. The stories of the students who play Fortnite in the back of your classroom may suffer from the anxiety that led them to watching those videos. So before you go ahead and make a judgment, just stop and maybe offer them some of my solutions. Thank you and have a nice day.